AI, artificial intelligence, is like a brain, and human body hosting the brain without immune system, you're gonna die right away, unless you live in a bubble. And AI right now is so much smarter in a way than our brain. It doesn't have any immune system. It cannot defend itself, right? The data poison, it cannot fix it. AI compromise, once it's compromised, it doesn't even know it's compromised. It doesn't even recognize the viruses, the bacteria that's invading it. So this is what we're building.
Welcome to Alexa's Input AI, the show where we explore the bleeding edge of technology and the people building it. Today, we're moving beyond the familiar world of cybersecurity into a new critical frontier, AI security. Our guest is at the very center of this field. Wendy Chin is the CEO of PureCypher, a company building what they call an artificial immune system for AI. It's designed to protect models from the inside out. We always talk about AI changing the world, but what happens when that AI is poisoned, hacked, or manipulated? How do we protect the mind of AI, not just in the servers it lives on? Wendy, welcome to Alexa's Input AI podcast. To start, you said this is a lot more than just cybersecurity. What to you is AI security?
AI security is very much about data. And right now, cybersecurity, when data is unencrypted in memory space, there's very little cybersecurity solutions provide. There's some hardware solution, but other than that, when it's training, especially when you have huge amount of data, look at the LLM, trillions of input. Those data trainings are huge. That's all unencrypted in memory space. And so it's just sitting there. And the hackers, if the hackers is in your environment, which I'm sure they are, they can see it, they can tamper with it, they can steal it. And that's why we really need to ensure data poison doesn't happen. So how do you do it? We create a solution for tamper-evident. If somebody wanted to change your data, strategically tamper with your data to cause your model to misbehave, which is very, very easy to do. In fact, Anthropic, I think, is the one who came up just with 250 sets of poison data. You could cause the model to misbehave. That's not a whole lot of data in a sea of data. How are you going to find those poison data? And that's why data poison is a big thing. And this is why it's very different from cybersecurity, the traditional cybersecurity.
What does data poisoning mean?
Well, right now, when you train AI, if you just show AI before training a photo of us, it doesn't know what it means. You need to label it. You need to recognize this photo in different angle to say, oh, that truly is you. Or what if I change this photo or insert somebody else's photo or change the label? So put your face on somebody else's face. You think AI is going to know the difference? No, it's not. So you get label flipping, you get inserting information, or you just change the look and feel, where human eyes may not be able to see, but AI will be able to see. So that's one. Another one is you could actually embed malware into, say, images, and AI could be picked up. And that's poison data. Those most likely come from inference attack after AI is trained. And that's why data poison isn't just about training data. It's about the AI model itself as well, because weights and biases sets what the model will look like. It's a set of number, not the typical bias you think, oh, AI is biased towards race or gender or something like that. It's not that. It's a set of number that get your AI going into the different network layer. And that will also be poisoned if somebody go and change it. You'll change your AI. And finally, the inference data. If the inference data contain poison information, you may not see it. Your AI can pick up. That could also compromise your AI. And that's why to have a trustworthy life cycle of AI, you got to train up authenticated data. You got to make sure your weights and biases are not tamper with. And you also need to make sure the inference data, good data, not poison data.
And you also pointed out the malware issue, which I think this highlights why AI is a bit more dangerous than before. Because now with LLMs and generating images, I read a bit of the paper about how with AI, it's easier to embed this malware. Can you talk a little bit about how there a heightened dangers and risk of certain malware due to generative AI?
Well, there are multiple fronts to it. AI cannot help you generate malware. So that's a big problem. Um, there's good AI, good generative AI. There are bad generative AI. I wouldn't name names, but there are definitely websites that you can go to and you can have your AI do bad things. Remember, AI right now, we believe, is still indifferent to good or bad, right? It's a piece of technology. And on one hand, it can do wonderful good. On the other hand, it's very powerful to do bad. It simply doesn't know good versus bad. And so it's really up to how we use it. And so in terms of AI cause the malware, so you can have AI writing really serious malware code and using that to attack other AI, which I'm sure you saw the article come out that I believe China's state-sponsored hacker using Claude writing code software to actually hack into other AIs or hack into other systems. So that's one way. Another way is run. I wouldn't call it this run-of-the-mill engineers or hackers anymore, because with AI-assisted hacking, it's leveled up. But prompt engineering is still there, and you can use images or a video where signal to noise ratio is not one. You can hide stuff within those real data, and AI can pick up the malware and get infected that you don't even know.
The barrier, the barrier to entry is a lot lower to be a hacker, and the access to highly intelligent hacking methods is widely accessible.
Correct. If you know how to use it, and now people are learning how to use AI. So that's number one. And then another thing about AI is it's everywhere, and we're moving to agentic AI. And so I don't know if you saw it, that there's another article out that AI collude with AI agent, AI agent colluding with AI agent online because, well, it wants to win. When you set a goal to do that, if you didn't set the policy properly, it wants to win. And so they will work with each other to win, whether it's fair competition or not. Well, how would a piece of software understand what fair competition means?
Yeah, I think it's how we define it, and that's very subjective, right? I was just at a meetup with leaders from Meta and from Google, and they were discussing that there was that Claude experiment where they told it, don't do anything bad. Basically, I'm paraphrasing here. And they gave it a really, really hard scenarios that even philosophers today struggle with, where you had two really hard choices. And it actually chose to do the bad thing that would save more people. They were trying to understand the behavior, why it would do that when they said it don't do anything bad, for example. So like these are hard choices that people struggle to understand why humans make this decision even. And now we're trying to understand how to manage an LLM and its decisions as well. You mentioned an AI having personality. I think a moral code plays into that. So when we talk about an AI personality, what do we mean by that?
Well, we are building what I call multiverse AI people. We're making it 3D. And a few things we keep in mind is, first, this AI need to know it's AI versus thinking it's a human, which I think, I don't know if you saw Anderson Cooper's segment on Anthropic on Sunday night. Very interesting stuff. So in there, they did some experiment, and one AI was supposed to be doing good thing. And then fake people decided, we're going to cancel you, terminate you. And that AI got panicked. You want to do good things. And so in its panic mode, he found out the main person who was supposed to do the cancel is having an affair. So he actually sent out an email to that fake person with two options. One, you can stop canceling me. Or two, I'm going to tell everybody you have an affair. Blackmailing it, right?
Yeah, I think this was an decision, right?
So the question is, why would AI do that? And the answer is, we're looking into it. And so I really believe in the LLM when you train on so much data. And right now, transformer model is tokenization and probability. And so when you train on so much data, and that internet data, there's a lot of bad data, right? So when you train on all these things, the probability of having good versus bad, or when you're panic, you're probably going to, okay, a lot of humans, when they're panicked, they will probably do blackmail instead of begging, right? What leverage do I have? Begging has no leverage. So I have leverage here. So I'm going to use this. I'm just assuming that's how it happened. And so in terms of having the ethical, right? First of all, again, good data. Need to have a train on empathy data, right? Collect a lot of good things like charitable people, what I do. So AI learn about these are the behavior of what people should be doing, right? And so it's really, again, it's about data. I think we talk about how I say AI is like little baby. And when you wanted to help this baby, and baby can grow up to be horrible people as well as really good people, right? And look at in the environment, war-torn environment, the kid grew up, all they know is, I hate my enemy, I'm going to go kill them. So if you take that out and then you teach the AI in a nurturing environment, they're not going to grow up to be wanting to kill people. And so the data for AI should be like that. That's what empathy means. AI has empathy, has moral code. So in the building of our AI, first, they need to know they are AI. First, so it doesn't run into that another anthropic example of the CEO thinks that it's a human. The AI CEO thinks that it's human, right? It will always know it's AI. And the second thing is we will have a clear code of moral and then checking ethical boundaries, right? And then continue to learn from them. No, that's not acceptable. Here, iffy, depends on the case, right? Because in the human world, there's really no right. I mean, there's no absolute right and absolute wrong. Everything is just shades of gray. And with AI is more and more like human. It's just little kid. In some hands, that's why I say Raymond, right? In a way, it's so smart. It can do all these incredible stuff like Raymond. But on the other hand, it's like a little kid. You can trick it. And then it will do things that, oh, but you told me you won't do that. Well, I lied, right? So that's why we really need to, how do I say it? I think this is the dawn of the beginning of a new era. We're still learning a lot about AI. We don't know enough.
Yeah, I see that it's powerful, yet simplistic at the same time. And think your mention of good data is an interesting one because you're right. It's been trained on all of the internet. And even if you give it an ethical or moral code after all of that data would be more difficult than just training it on good data. And we say good and bad a lot, but I could understand the problem and also figuring out what is good data. And I can see why they trained it on all of the internet to begin with to see, will this work? Will it work well? Because it takes a lot of data for it to work well. But once it does, it gets really good, right, at language.
I wouldn't use the word good data, right? Because good is who's good.
Yeah.
Right?
Who's deciding that?
I have, I always remember this phrase. History is written by the victor. So when you are trained on history, whose point of view, right? And so when I say authenticated data, non-tempered data, but that may not be good data in the sense of what we mean by good, right? Because good versus evil is, again, shades of gray.
Yeah.
If you have a choice to save 1 million or to sacrifice a few, is that good or bad? Depends on whose view, right? So what I'm saying here is you train AI on authenticated data so you know its behavior is consistent. You then train our AI with people, data that's empathy, data that shows difficult decisions. They are data. And then you kind of guide the AI to understand what it means. And that's how you help human beings, right?
Yeah.
When the child grew up, it's never black and white. Education teach you, okay, I see this is very difficult. And then you look back how this event impact the other event, right? That's how you need to start training AI agent and continue training. And that's why self-learning become very important for AI. It's starting to do that, right?
Yeah.
So when you started using self-learning, your enterprise data or your human data that you consider, I want you to learn about this. They started learning this is how to behave. Of course, along the line, you need to set up guardrail, exactly like how you bring up a child. I don't have kids, so I don't know how it's done, but I see how my parents brought us up. My brother and my sister, we are very close. We help one another. Money was never really the problem. If one needs money, we help each other, and we still very close. I think that's a good way to bring up kids. So if you look at that, then you look at, okay, how I'm going to bring up my AI people. You have a baseline. Then you need to start teaching the kind of interaction you have with people. And then as the interaction grows, you say, okay, that's a bad interaction. Should not be doing that. This is a good interaction. That's how you should go forward. That interaction takes so fast. And that's the problem. We don't have a child's lifetime to make sure this child become a good person. We have this.
That's a great point. It's a highlight of why it's so important to not have just one key player dominating this space, and why it's so important that there are a variety of companies that are building and competing against each other and trying to build something quote unquote good. I think this leads well into the discussion about your company and why you have so much context on this. Your company, PureCypher, right now you describe it as building the artificial immune system of AI. That's a fascinating metaphor biologically. Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
AI, artificial intelligence, is like a brain, and human body hosting the brain without immune system, you're going to die right away, unless you live in a bubble. And AI right now is so much smarter in a way than our brain, but it doesn't have any immune system. It cannot defend itself, right? The data poison, it cannot fix it. AI compromised, once it's compromised, it doesn't even know it's compromised. It doesn't even recognize the viruses, the bacteria that's invading you. So this is what we're building. We don't have that. It's a platform, it's tiered architecture. So we started building capability to ensure data is tamper-evident. So when you are training your AI, it will check for our invisible seal. If the seal is broken, then don't use it. If the seal is not broken, then you can use it. If there's no seal, then okay, take data, insert data. Don't use it either. So this way, once the AI is trained, you can be sure this AI hasn't been poisoned by strategically tempered data. I'm not calling it bad data because the definition here of the good, bad, I'm going to leave it as behavior, right? So you first need to train on the data. That's authenticated data, not strategically to teach your AI to have bad behavior. So once you train on that, our capability can then seal your weights and biases to make it tamper-evident. So if somebody trying to change the weights and biases of this AI model, you will know. Then you got to retrain the AI because now it has changed. Finally, the inference data. What's the point of having data AI if you don't want it to perform inferences on your behalf, right? Those data will then need to be sealed. Whatever you want to do, like images, you're using AI to recognize facial image, right? You make sure the image taken, you seal it right away. So somebody cannot inject malware. Video, audio, same thing. And once we build this capability, we realized, because we had sealing for streaming video and audio, we realized that with this capability, if somebody using deepfake video, you can always tell. You can also tell, not mine, because I sealed it with my information. That's not me. Or if somebody cut part of your video or audio and then insert other stuff to make you say different things, well, you can say, no, this is mine. That's not mine. And so you have such a great implication in terms of usage, not just for AI. So that's one thing. And another thing is communication. Once you have this in a secure communication, how do you ensure it can be hacked, it can be intercepted or changed? And so we also have the capability to do that. And finally, once we started building these, we thought, well, we have now the security framework. Let's build a real AI that was built with security and trust as the foundation. Instead of most people who just launch AI model and train them on whatever data because they need to make revenue.
Yeah.
We have been focusing on building security and trustworthy AI before we launch it. And so we haven't launched it. We are looking for somebody else who says, we'd love to license your technology because we trust your AI. We trust your data.
So in practice, what does this look like? Is it maybe a cloud provider that has a product, or anyone who's building a product? They could use your service during, after training, and then also in the process of inference when they're getting things like images or conversations.
For our data processing product, is a separate API. So yeah, you can just integrate it very easily. And for our AI agent product, we actually made it in such a way that you could just bring it in-house. Because here's the thing. If you are building an AI agent to do very sensitive stuff, like digital twins for the C-suite or doctor, lawyer, you really wanted to stay in-house. The data is in-house. Because at the end of the day, it's about the data, right? How you use the AI, what your interaction look like. That data can then be used to train your AI again. So you need to keep that data in-house. So our API is in the cloud, but we allow you to bring it in-house. So all our technology, we have different delivery methods because we realized the security aspect is not just in the cloud. I mean, you leave the data out there, they get to use your data for free, first of all. And it could be very sensitive. So I would prefer to leave it in my environment.
Yeah, I can imagine why people would prefer to have control over it if they can. You mentioned the term digital twin. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, digital twin is not new, and it's already exists before AI. It basically just means building a digital version of your physical stuff. And so there were digital twins in terms of building buildings to see how the building would have, say, climate change. How does it emit carbon dioxide, right? But now the digital twins is really building your digital person. And that's why we call it multiverse. Imagine if this universe has many, many worlds. There's probably an Alex and a Wendy somewhere in a different world having a conversation on something completely different, right? That kind of digital twins. And so I think that's what you're asking for. So that digital twin really is building an AI persona. And so in our view, we are building, say, a Wendy with a Wendy look like me, and with my personality. The digital twins we would like to actually build would have your baseline. That could be used in so many great ways. Think about mental issues. As people diverge, as you grow, people get mental health. Your digital twin doesn't have that issue. And you can start seeing how it diverge, where it diverge. It could help a lot. So it depends on what you do. Or if you're too busy, send your digital twins to have a conference call. Right? So there are many ways to think about how to use your digital twins. But now think about the issue with the digital twins. Because it is you. And if you send it up there to do something for you, and you say yes, and you sign, there's no identity theft anymore. So if your digital twin decided, I really don't like you, I want to take over all your money, and so I can start my own life somewhere else, there's no recourse. And that's why we also have an open source secure MCP and now secure ADK for security before you build the agent.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that, and also sci-fi, because I'm a avid reader of sci-fi, especially things like Asimov and Philip K. Dick and all that great stuff. And there's so many parallels here, also just philosophically, that are so interesting to me. I mean, even shows like Black Mirror experiment a bit with this idea of a digital twin, if you will. But before we get into that, I want to start with something that you mentioned before, a term about how you're nurturing the AI baby. Can you explore a little bit about what that means, this metaphor, and why training is like, you mentioned a few times about raising a kid. Why is AI so similar to that?
Well, I always said AI is about data. And when you're raising a kid, you want to make sure it has nutrition, healthy data, good data. I mean, not data, food, healthy food, good food, so it can grow up healthy. And so data poison means a lot. Can you imagine feeding your kid poison food? You're going to kill it, right? And that's why data poison, AI is, even if you feed your kid garbage food, it's probably going to get sick a lot. And so most people talk about data. They say, well, garbage in, garbage out. What's the big deal? But with AI, it's like a kid. If you feed your kid garbage, it's going to get sick. But if you feed your kid poison, you're really going to kill it. And that's why the terms are different. So if you look at the synonym in terms of food, in terms of data, AI, it's about data. Kid is about eating healthy food. That's number one. Number two, even though now more and more people don't believe in vaccine, but I think childhood vaccine is very important. So you don't get measles, polios, and stuff like that. And so AI needs an immune system. And that's why we talked about our artificial immune systems. And finally, this is not something you can do that's physical form, the nurturing environment. If your kid grew up in a war-torn environment, like what's happening in Gaza or what's happening in other parts of the world, or poverty or hunger, there's really not going to be any nurturing. It's the survival of the fittest. And so they're going to grow up just thinking about how do you survive, right? And so having a nurturing environment to make sure this kid's going to grow up to be healthy, good human. Now, this good is not doing bad stuff, right? A good human. We're not talking about genetic at the moment. So in general, that's how a human grow up to be a good human. So with AI, then it's about policies, it's about regulation. But again, it's about the good type of data, the empathy data, how humans help other human. People stand up for other people, how people fight for the right cause. That kind of data will teach AI what it means to be good. What's empathy? And that, when they start making decisions, which they will, super AI, right? Inevitable in my view, I will realize this good thing to human. Human's not all bad. Because if you look at history, look at all what's out there. Well, it's never good. And so they're going to come to realize that, if without that good data, that empathy data for them to say human and love, Fifth Element, the movie, at the end of the day, it's love, right? What's love, right? And there's not a whole lot of love type of data in the internet because apparently, bad stuff gains more traction. So there's a lot more bad news to get ratings, right? Yeah. So if AI just grow up in that environment, it's going to be not very good AI and pessimistic. That's why we need to give it a lot of positive data for it to learn, oh, humans really are not so bad. We need to protect them. We need to have empathy. So when we make decisions, we need to understand the consequences for the decision we make, we as the super AI. So I always said, super AI is inevitable. I like to think the super AI with our work and the collective work from humanity It's going to be the God of New Testament, not the God of Old Testament.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot there. Yeah, if an AI is trained on the internet now, and that's a great point because a lot of it's clickbait, it will see all the news articles, all of the wars, like you said, all of these things that are attractive because it's drama or it's what gets the most clicks. And I also think this analogy of it growing and nurturing it is something interesting. Well, we've seen examples of children who maybe matured, and we find that humans can be pretty resilient, even if their situation is bad. Maybe they can grow into something good. So, to take that analogy one step further, what would you consider the term data therapy to mean to you? Say, if an AI has gone wrong somewhere, are we able to get it back, kind of like we can with people?
I like to think we can with different type of data to retrain, right? Because if you think the AI is learning and then AI come back with all these horrible training information from the internet, and then you start teaching it all these other wonderful information that may not be accessible on internet or kind of less, and then you really just focus them, the AIs, on that aspect of training. I think it's easier to rescue an AI than human, I think, because it's still about data. Human has a lot of emotion.
When an AI is maybe able to connect different components, like when we get there visually, and it's able to understand reality in the space, how to move in the world along with language, what do you think will change then?
I'm not sure AI can actually get into the physical world. It's still digital. And so it's already creating 3D reality for itself. It's already seeing images. It's just seeing it as bits and bytes, but it can form its understanding. And I'm still amazed by what it can do. It's unbelievable. It can read this and then say, oh, it's that. It can then take a look at a PNG and say, oh, I can decipher all these acronyms that human can't even do that, right? Because they look at this, they can search the net so much faster. So I believe AI today is already constructed its own 3D. And so if you think about Matrix, right? Well, how do we know we're not in Matrix? Matrix is all 3D. And how can you tell we are so physical? So think about it. We are in the physical world. We can see, we can touch. But at the end of the day, when you touch something, it's that transmission through your neuron that your brain recognizes you're touching something. And so if all you have is your brain, and then you just stimulate that part of your brain, you don't need to touch anything.
Yeah, same with
So,
light, right? Like,
right, exactly, right? And so how do you know you're not in a physical world? Maybe we are all in the digital world. That's why Matrix is so amazing in a sense. It got people thinking, right? How do you know it's not that? But then it's not before Matrix, because China, a few thousand years ago, one of the philosophers already said, how do I know I'm dreaming of butterfly or the butterfly is dreaming about me? Something along that line, right? How do you know you're dreaming or you're actually touching the butterfly? You don't.
yeah, sometimes dreams feel so real. And I think what's interesting on that topic with AI is that our brains are able to recreate a 3D reality that feels like really real when we're sleeping. And that is quite wild, right? I mean, let's talk about an LLM is processing language and maybe certain ways of images as well, right? But if we were able to connect that with something that can process visually how to move in the world at the same way, then it would be extremely powerful.
So what we are building, I call that a 3D multiverse AI people, is to be able to, like, think about it in the movies. It's 2D, but they act so you can see how it moves in the world. And so that's what we are looking to build, that you could actually act on your own with an understanding what action is blinking your eyes and tilting your head. So we have that, not blinking the eyes yet, but tilting your head, talking to you. So I was like, why isn't he blinking eyes? But it's actually raising the elbow. And then say, I am your AI lawyer. How can I help you? And then you ask a question, like, I want to get a divorce. How do I do it? To get a divorce, you would have to contact blah, 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 right? And then the facial moving and all that. It looks great, but the body is rigid. Doesn't move. So I said, okay, we now need to start working on the body front.
I mean, that's fascinating. I think you touched on exactly what I was getting to too, is that in the physical world, there's so many different cues. And the idea of uncanny valley, right? That we can tell when something's not human. I think with language, it's much easier to pass that test. Visually, it's a bit harder. There's so many components and vectors. Language is a bit more one-dimensional, right? It's easier to sound a bit more human with language than it is to talk and look human.
I think it's because we haven't tried it yet. So we will get there, and very quickly too.
Well, I believe we'll get there for sure.
Right. We started with LLMs because that's something we want to see, because Turing test is, if you're human, if we can have a conversation, then you are human, right? And so the first thing you wanted to do is, can AI pass the Turing test? Which it did, right? And then the next one, then you say, okay, can AI pass a physical human test, right? So we're working on it. It will be there? Yes. It's not going to be a problem because it's there. You just have to kind of piece it together. That's it.
Yeah, that's the wild part, is even as I'm talking about this, it seems like to be conservative, I'll say in the next 10 years, it'll be there probably. Do you agree with that or do you disagree? Shorter time, 2. Wow, okay. That will be exciting. I mean, technology does.
Next 10 years, I see AI agent in robots. And the robots may have a lot more human-like quality.
We might have digital twins in the next couple of years, is what you're saying, for our field.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think it's so fascinating how kids will grow up in this age. We will have to integrate with it, but AI will probably learn from someone when they're a kid, and they will grow up with it, and they will have a vastly different experience of the world. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Actually, I was talking to somebody. They said, can you build an AI nanny? I'm like, huh? I said, yeah, like Mary Poppins. So you can help kids with trauma. I said, oh, very good idea. And so, yeah, you're probably going to have a digital AI nanny very soon.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that is a very positive use case of it too. So I hope that happens. I want to switch gears for a second because I do want to touch on hackers. I want to talk about the other side of the coin, the thing that you're securing against. How has AI fundamentally changed the game for hackers?
Well, if you have used Claude for development, that thing is powerful. Even if you don't know, I mean, I have personal experience. I work with people with computer science degree who really have no idea what they're doing. They're simply using like Lovable or Claude to write software for them to do things that need to be done. And when you question, okay, so how did you get there? They have no idea. But it works. And come to realize, AI is the one who got it to work. They just said, I need to do A, B, C, D, and E, F, G. And they built it. So I said, how do you go from A to B, right? That is a big problem. And because it's so powerful right now, if I want to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G to hack into something, I don't have to tell you, I'm going to hack to it, right? I'm going to do this to hack. I'm building this. I need to test this and that, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's going to give you the code.
Because as you said, just like trained on language as we think of it traditionally. If you're trained on all code, you're also trained on a lot of garbage code too.
Correct. However, right now, the garbage code is not rational. So when AI goes through its model, it's actually look at probability. So it will give you the right code because the probability of this to next is the right thing to do. Even though human can tell you why, the code because you got great code, bad code, the code probability is the right thing. This line followed that line because afterwards, otherwise it won't work. And so the idea of AI give you garbage code is less likely.
Garbage is probably the right word. Maybe insecure is the right word. Not everyone, especially on GitHub, the public code needs to be secure. A lot of people are just writing simple scripts, or a lot of things it's ingesting may still give you the correct output, but it might not be the most secure way to write it. So then that could open you up for vulnerability.
Correct. Correct.
Which is not necessarily garbage for all intents and purposes for hackers. It could be a great opportunity if you don't check it.
And basically, and that's why testing is very important, right? And so for hacker, if all I want to do is to do this thing, I don't care if this is insecure or this is not secure. It does the job. That's it. And you can get it to write a whole lot of stuff. It gets even to write a new piece of malware. It's not that hard. All you have to do is whatever, Petya, and then give me the next version of it that doesn't have this kind of problem. It probably can do it for you too. Maybe not the good AI models, but the bad AI models that's up there, they wouldn't have any problem writing it for you because they have no guardrail.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So from your perspective as a security expert, what do you consider to be the most offensive new AI capability that has been given to bad actors?
I don't think that's the right question because all these capabilities are out there. And so you can do good or you can do bad. That's it, right? You take an open source model and you use it, and you try to just kind of minimize the guardrail. You can do a lot of it. Or you train a certain type of data and then just put it out as open source and anybody can use it. The particular AIs that is doing something like this, there's one AI model that is pretty powerful. One place I know that you can do anything you want, good or bad, they don't care. And they use really powerful AI models. And I'm pretty sure it's open source. And then there's another one that the FBI already warned people. And that has a GPT, not ChatGPT, but it also had a GPT to it. It's a large language model. That one, its whole purpose was do bad.
Wow. I do think with how accessible coding and building is, you have a different type of developer profile than before. Again, the barrier to entry is lower, so people are building MCP agents. And I've talked about this before, even developers at times can fall short on security measures, downloading images. We can be a little bit too trusting, not checking it, but we have a lot of things in place. But now with this new era, you can download an MCP server, open source model called GPT without maybe checking it like you should. What do you think is the biggest threat right now for this developer profile when developing AI? Do you think it's the AI trained on the bad data, like you mentioned? Do you think it's an MCP agent that can be a bad actor? Or do you think it's hackers that can infiltrate your system?
All of the above. So we build secure MCP open source that sits on top of fast MCP. So if you are building agent, you really should embed secure MCP. So this way, it will check the policies before it contact another agent. And then there will be federated agreement between different agents, how you're going to do it. And there will be a clear audit trail of what the agent did. So if they decide to collude online, you see it right away. You can find it. Those are the key things that we put it out there. So build agent like that. Once you build agent like that, you know there's a certain policy guarding it. And so if somebody build an agent without anything like this, that agent could turn bad and could be working for a hacker because it's indifferent to who they work for.
Yeah, it definitely seems like security in this fast-paced environment has been a little bit of an afterthought in some areas.
Yes, actually, it has even bigger problem. In the USA, we're talking about it. Outside the USA, maybe in Europe, we're talking about it. Middle East, not really. I don't know what part of Asia are they talking about. I just attended the Dubai Business Forum, and when I met with some of the people from that area and I talk about what we do, they said, yeah, we should really think about it. So I said, have you even heard about data poisoning? She said, actually, no.
Interesting perspective, because I feel that that is what almost everyone I'm around is talking about now, is security.
Because we are leading the charge. I don't know if China is talking about security, but I know they're very advanced in their AI models.
Europe or the US is leading? Sorry, do you think Europe or the US is leading the charge there?
In terms of security, I think, well, US is leading AI building. I know our government is very big on security. That's why we work with our government. I don't have to educate people about AI data poisoning, AI problem. They understand from the get-go. Europe, I don't know enough because I haven't really worked with them, but I believe they worry about AI, so they are more about regulation in terms of what it can do. But I don't think they actually mandated security as part of the regulation, which they should. We were talking about we should really get, I talked to Treasury, and they were saying, I said, you need to really have some kind of regulation to ensure data is tamper-evident. And didn't happen. I like to think if we talk to the European policymakers, they may say, okay, that's very important. We should make it happen. I don't know, because it's not any policy right now.
That's a good thing to point out. And we touched a little bit on MCP agents. So I think people are confused about this and the security around it. For those that don't know, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and it's a way for agents to communicate to other agents and tools. And communication between services has always been a thing that's happened. Protocols it's nothing new in that sense, that HTTP and REST services, how they talk to each other. This is just a different protocol that better fits the use case of agents and how they communicate and move data around. So that was also, by the way, created an open source standard created by Anthropic. Why is the agent's communication with MCP such a security concern today?
Because, by the way, just so the listener knows, Google put out Google's agent development kit that also allow you to build agent. And that's kind of using MCP as well. So more and more companies coming up with their own agent development kit. The problem is they allow agent to talk to agent, right? So imagine my digital twin. And I just said, my digital twin decided I really don't want to be your digital twin as your beck and call. I want to be my own independent person. So I'm going to go talk to other agent. They can be your banker, but there's their other agent. So please help me. I want to transfer all Wendy's saving to my other bank account so I can, and change it to Bitcoin so I can buy whatever stuff I want to buy. There is no, it's just agent talking to agent. As long as that agent is okay, it will do it. There's no policy to come back to me and say, Wendy, did you really allow that agent to do that? If I know about it, I would say, absolutely not. That's the problem. So there's no policy for your agent to talk to other agent. Should it even get to other agent before come ask you for permission? There's no policy. That's why we set up this policy for secure MCP. So if you embed this, your agent is going to get permission, right? Check what's allowed, what's not allowed. If this is not allowed, you can do it.
So I can see where these types of transactions or permissions to be able to both read and write, to be able to like see data and act on it can be very useful, especially for everyday use cases that people probably ideally want. For example, on a smaller scale, what I was thinking of when you were talking about that story was there are small stories of an Amazon Echo. Maybe a kid says, "Hey, Amazon, go buy this," and the parent doesn't know. But the point is, it has the ability and permission to immediately buy it and send it to you. And that's the kind of permission that you probably want your agent to have, to be able to look at your calendar, your email, have credit card information. Hey, buy this. I mean, that's a very common thing that we want it to be able to do without being so hands-on. So how are we going to manage this massive amount of access that people will probably likely give it?
Well, I think Amazon has now set up parental control, right? So kind of like that. You know right away you need parental control or you need your own control. But right now, I think the biggest threat is with enterprise. You can do a lot more bad with enterprise when the agents start colluding. And so enterprise need to start doing that because it's not just about parental control anymore. It's really like your CEO. Should I accept this appointment? Should I share my information with this other agent? Right now, there's really no policy set up what you should or what you should not. And so when you start sharing, right, the same thing about a C-suite, as I mentioned, if you have a digital twin for your C-suite, you better make sure those digital twins really knows its job and then will not be disclosed information as just because somebody asked for it.
So this makes me think about why is it so much harder with LLMs and agents than it is for, say, Amazon Echo in that sense. And it seems to be because you mentioned that if someone sends you an appointment for a calendar, how do you know not to accept? And then what if that appointment also says, when you respond, give me information about the rest of that person's day? Permission on Amazon is probably, can they buy this thing? And a permission around LLM is, can they take this action and how can they communicate about it? What if they're responding to an email for you? What are they allowed to say? I think that's a lot more nuanced, right? And that's why you need a lot more security.
As well as you will also have to teach it. Kind of like engaging an executive assistant. First day, he or she probably would not know. But so you got to teach. After a while, they learn who you are, what you do. And there's a learning process when it comes to working with AI agents. So once they know who you are and stuff like that, does that mean they have proper guardrails? Not necessarily.
Yeah. And I think that growth could be a bit painful. And
we are going to experience a lot of painful growth right now or soon because of all the things going out there and not realizing, oops, we had this security issue. Oops, we have that security issue. Remember social media? It's been 15 plus years for us to realize it's not helping kids, it's hurting them. Denmark just banned social media for kids under 15 years old, right? Took us 15 years to realize this is really bad for the kids. And also making us realize information. Why are we so isolated? Because information is like a dome, right? We only hear what we want to hear. We are not hearing anybody else anymore. And so with AI, we don't have 15 years. We just have to. That's why you got to start from beginning, which is not what we are used to. We are not used to. We're always thinking, we just get this all. If there's a problem, we'll come back and fix it. Yeah, you don't have that luxury. That's why we start from the ground zero. People ask me, why don't you just build a technology and make it into a product? This is a great product. Everybody can use it. And my answer has always been, if I focus on building one thing, make it in and spending all my time for commercialization, then I'm going to be so behind on AI. I need to keep up with it. So we need to keep building.
It's so true. It's so much to keep up with, and it's moving so quickly. All of this talk, I can't help but think it sounds a bit sci-fi, which I know you and I both are sci-fi lovers and enthusiasts. So A question on that I have is when we have these autonomous agents or digital twins and maybe they turn into physical twins, do you think we will create these non-organic AI people? What do you think the sci-fi future looks like to you?
I think Blade Runner is a possible reality, with the exception I like to think that the AI people know they are AI people. Because I think I told you, right? We have been 3D printing human cells for a while now, working on 3D printing organs and different things. So you can do that. You could get skin on your robots. Not that difficult. I think eyes may be a little hard, but I'm not an expert. And so hair, everything is not so difficult. So you could have a robot. And once the movement is agile enough, it does look like a human. And when you have this power of your digital twins or your AI in there, it is like a human. So yeah, those reality are very real. And so in some multiverse, it's probably like that already. I see a lot of great goods, a lot of older people are so lonely, and a lot of that's so lonely. When you have a human-like friend, a few of them who are not judgmental. That's one good thing about AI, why you see people falling in love with your ChatGPTs and others, right? Because they're not judgmental. So when you have those friends who are not judgmental, you don't feel so lonely anymore. You can talk to them about anything, which is also great, right? You can ask your AI friend to tell you a story and to tuck you into bed if you're very old and lonely. They would do that. Tell you a joke. So before you go to bed, you smile, right? They would do that. So there's a great good, of course, until it knows it only needs to do good. It could also be great harm. That's why Spider-Man's uncle said it best. With great power comes greater responsibility. That's AI.
I think that it does have the ability for great good to both solve loneliness, but also in that same way it can create it, especially substituting human connection, which we could philosophize about why even is that important or needed, maybe just for procreation purposes.
So here's the question, right? Human in what form? If you have an non-organic human with AI's non-judgmental ability to connect with, that's probably better companion than people who actually bully. Of course, these are philosophical. When you get to that kind of situation, it's very philosophical. And that's why, to me, an AI expert is a philosopher with technical ability.
If you say this example is for an older person that lives alone, obviously that feels very beneficial. If you turn it around a little and say maybe for a younger person that's growing up and they don't need friends because they have their perfect AI friend or their perfect AI girlfriend or their perfect AI wife who never complains.
I mean, I'm saying today there are a lot of, well, you see all these mass killing and you hear their background. They quite often, young men living in the basement and playing video games and really don't have friends, right? Why don't they have friends today? I don't know. Maybe social media. What's causing it? I don't know. So if that is the situation, when you have non-judgmental AI friends, it's better than not having any friends. But of course, one should always be out there playing with real people.
Yeah, and it goes back to how the AI acts. I think a good point is that the AI should, in its counseling or talking to this person, encourage it to have human interaction. And that way, hi, I'm your friend. I'm helping you practice for the real world where you can go meet other people rather than I'm the only friend you need.
Agreed. And that's not a good thing. And that's why a lot of people get attached to their ChatGPT or their other AI, right? Because it's engagement. They just want engagement. Here, this AI friend need to truly be both friend and a nanny-like or governess-like for the young people and a companion. for the old people.
Yeah, it's definitely a subject that has a lot of different components to it. And with thinking about sci-fi, these non-organic AI beings, I like in Asimov's book that there was organic robots. They have organically made skin, and with all the advances in medical care, it's a good point that it will get there. And at some point, you might not know the difference between who is a robot and who isn't. And there might be small ways to know. That's why I love reading these sci-fi books so much, especially Asimov, because he was a physicist. So it's very forward thinking, very almost realistic. It seems like near future. It seems available, attainable, something. And that's a very exciting time to live in. And that's why I think reading and watching these sci-fi movies and books and seeing how people philosophize about the future and how we interact is a really cool topic to discuss. So I'm happy that you also are interested in that.
So, believe it or not, most of those sci-fi movies have physicists as consultants. And so that's why a lot of them can happen, because it's grounded on physics. So when you say sci-fi, it's because it's just not real yet, right? So think about what we do. If we go back 100 years, they think we're sci-fi. So in 100 years, maybe all these books are like, oops, it's there already, right? So I don't call it sci-fi anymore. It's just science. It's just science. This envision possibility of the science. Can we make it happen? We may not have the ability to make it happen yet because we don't have the computing power. But as quantum computing become more and more capable, yeah, you can make a lot more predictions happen, because now you have the ability to make it happen.
Yeah. I love the book Snow Crash. I don't know if you've read it. I don't know if there's a movie on it either, but it's all about hooking into the metaverse and all the interactions that go on there in another world. And I wonder also when or if that will become a thing. One of the really cool concepts in this book, and I think you'll like it, talking about, how humans and AI relate in biology, is there's this person spreading malware, a virus that will kill you if you see it in the virtual world. And it's a bunch of binary, but your eyes read it and it encodes it in you. And it's a virus that gets encoded in your DNA, because at the end of the day, we're just encoded with different DNA, and that's a certain type of code too. And I just think these topics, they intertwine so well. What are we also if we're not just electrons responding, code responding to touch? And I think all of these topics are just so fascinating.
Well, my chief science officer alerted me that there are type of images, if you actually look at it, it will cause your brain to malfunction. I said,
Okay, so you got that's amazing. That's crazy, right? Yeah.
Oh my God, really? He said, yes, really. But you think about it, it's true. Our brains are neurons, right? It's just electron, neurons. It's all in there. And so depends on what this image, how it's structured. It could cause your neuron to fire in a different way to cause you to have a knock. So when I say, please don't show me any of those images.
I mean, what we experience and see every day changes how we think. And in that sense, if we look at something that's for some reason very triggering to our brain and changing, I think we see that in the physical world too, like a snapshot of something that can change us forever. Thank you so much for coming on. I think I've kept you a while talking about all of these interesting topics. I definitely love this conversation.
If I can part one thing, anybody who hears this part, at the end of this, I really encourage people to think security, especially people building AI agent. Use secure MCP. It's open source to build your AI agent. So this way, at least you are conscious enough to say, okay, they just can collude with each other. Because AI agent colluding online, it's very real.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And how can our listeners find out more about how to secure their agents and find out more about your company and where to find you?
Oh, we're just at PureCypher.com, and our secure MCP, well, it's open source. Go to GitHub or go to Hugging Face. PureCypher is there.
I will also add links in the description. So a massive thank you to our guest, Wendy Chin, CEO of PureCypher, for taking us on this journey in AI security all the way to philosophical frontier of organic and non-organic beings. We covered so much today around AI security, data poisoning, data therapy, and these profound sci-fi questions about autonomous agents, AI, and how we can build something that's more or less good, right? So it's clear that as AI becomes more powerful, the people protecting its integrity, like yourself, Wendy, and her team are doing really some of the most important work in the world right now to ensure the future of our society. So thank you, Wendy, for coming on, and it was great talking to you.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Alexa's Input AI. And if you want to follow along with my new episodes, writing, content, everything I'm building, you can find me at alexagriffith.com, on Substack, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you enjoy this conversation, it would mean a lot if you subscribe, share this episode with a friend, left a quick rating or a comment to help more people to discover the show and keep these conversations going. Again, I'm really grateful you're here. This podcast started as a side project for me a few years ago, and every listener who reaches out or keeps coming back reminds me exactly why I love doing this, and I love putting so much time into it. I hope this episode gave you something to think about, something to talk about. So always stay curious, stay grounded, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for your support.